Good morning, everybody. Ooh, loud and scary. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Welcome, the mighty learners, this morning.
It's an intimate Torah study.
Intimate learners. I missed yesterday's football game, but I was very excited to see the outcome.
Unusual. Which one are you talking about?
Canes.
Yeah, unusual.
Happy about that. So, Shabbat Shalom and happy Thanksgiving weekend, everyone who's here. Do I sound exceptionally loud? No? Okay, good. Just my own ringing in my own ears, I guess. Okay. All right. Nice to see everybody on this wonderful Thanksgiving weekend of increasing freedom, we hope. And, well, we might as well start our morning with a blessing. Oh, wait, we sing V'shamru first. Roll me back. Okay. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam ve'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam oti leolam ve'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamin asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam ubayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-shabbat la'asot et ha-shabbat ledorotam berit olam Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim. Ooh, a fresh bottle of grape juice, yay.
Just squeeze.
Blessing for studying Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. A Shabbat Shalom for those watching us online. If you can't hear me, I don't know, maybe you can text me. I have the phone here, which I only have at Torah Study for some emergency purposes like no sound or no video, but I see our video is working. No blackboard. I just can't, Paul. There's just so much being last night and this morning about getting things where they're supposed to be. I have to come in here at 7 a.m. and move stuff myself to get stuff working. And and I'm not willing to do that. I think I'm not going to use, I don't have anything planned in writing for the blackboard. I might have used it, but I think we're okay. But thank you. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, I'm not working on any words in particular. What's nice about having different rabbis reading Torah from different perspectives is that sometimes like Rabbi Barris, and sometimes I will go in really deep into one little point, a word, a phrase, and focus on that. Rabbi Greengrass will find the social justice imperative in the text, and I usually will find the relationships in the text. And I think that's a lot of fun, why have the same thing all the time, the same perspective. And so I don't think I'm using any words today that will need a breakup on the board. I am, however, talking about relationships this morning, especially because it's Thanksgiving weekend and many people have had the blessing of being with people they may not always see. And that always brings in the most wild, well, in my family, some unbelievable surprises from grown children who are grown women will say something about a relationship or somebody perceiving to be favored or a memory, and I am totally blank, and I know I was in that room when whatever situation happened. And I think that's what happens when family comes together. And the Torah this morning is going to share so many different ideas of the relationship between Rachel and Leah. Also, I think it's also important that sometimes when I focus on the women, it's because we don't always do that. And I'm looking around the room. Who in this room has seen the Barbie movie? Thank you. 3. So I'm only friends, and Sherry didn't really love it, so I can't count you as my friend anymore. The 2 of you did you, so that's my new litmus test. So the Barbie movie, for you kippah-wearing gentlemen, you may not get it. You just can't, it's one of those things where if you haven't experienced something yourself, you may empathize, but you don't really feel it the same way. I think some of that is found in our text today. Sometimes when we focus on the women, and if we're not gender balanced in the room, it feels different. You may not have thought about this before, so we're going to think about it a little bit this morning. Yes?
Why don't you ask how many people saw Oppenheimer?
How many people have seen Oppenheimer? There we go. Which, Norman, you have related the 2 to the same day, because there was the same release, and some people saw actually double screenings of both movies, right? And how many people related to Oppenheimer? Yes, of course. Norman, as an engineer, as a physicist, absolutely would be your movie of the year.
Sure.
Okay. Norman, another time you'll have to explain the parts of the movie that maybe were inaccurate or purposefully hidden.
Well, the wonderful book...
Use the microphone.
The wonderful book that the film is based on is available in the library.
Okay. Our library. Oh, great. Okay, thank you. So... Norman, you know that you being a professor, well, I guess me being a rabbi, this group, we probably still go to books. But so many people outside of this space, a book is somewhat foreign to them. They get their news, as we say, off the internets. They get their understanding of the world off the internet, which is, as we know today, more than any other time, very problematic. We're going to read. So we're going to take a chunk of text, and then I'm going to go back and we're going to look at what the rabbi said and try to understand what is going on with these 2 sisters and what position their father has placed them in. We are in Parashat Vayetze, book of Breshit, chapter 29. And we're going to read from 29:17 through chapter 30, verse 2. Now, let's start at 16 to let's start at verse 16. And if you're using the Plout, it's page 200. We're at chapter 29, verse 16. Chapter 29, verse 16.
The new Plout is 197.
Page 200. And the new Plout is
197.
197? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bill, are you the reader? Who's starting to read? Microphone, please. Thank you.
17?
No, 16. Start at verse 16.
Okay. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older one was Leah, and the name of the younger one was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes. Rachel
29. 29:16.
Rachel was shapely and beautiful. Jacob loved Rachel. So he answered, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. Laban said, better that I give her to you than I should give her to an outsider. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her.
Okay, hang on there. Is there any question about who this deal was made for? Okay, no question, right? He loves Rachel. He asks for Rachel. Laban says, I'll give you Rachel. Right? It's pretty clear. All right. Thank you. Pass the microphone, and let's continue for a few more verses.
21. Jacob said to Laban, deliver my wife, for my term is fulfilled, and I will consort with her. So Laban gathered all the people of the place and made a feast. And it was in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him, and he consorted with her.
Okay, so no mistake that now it's Leah, but the deal was cut for Rachel. Okay, let's keep going.
And
24.
And Laban gave her Zilpah, his maidservant, a maidservant to Leah, his daughter. And it was in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I worked for you? Why have you deceived me? Laban said, such is not done in our place, to give the younger before the elder. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other one too. For the work which you will perform for me yet another 7 years. So Jacob did so, and he completed the week for her, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to him as his wife. And Laban gave Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his maidservant, to her as a maidservant. He consorted also with Rachel and loved Rachel even more than Leah, and he worked for him yet another 7 years.
Okay, thank you for hold down for that for a second. You're reading, I'm looking at, is that the New Plow? And I'm looking at verse 30 again, the English. And Jacob cohabited with Rachel also. Indeed, he loved Rachel more than Leah.
This is Stone.
Okay, and he served him another 7 years. He loved Rachel more than Leah. Okay, 31. Who's reading next?
The Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and named him Reuben. For she declared, it means the Lord has seen my affliction. It also means, now my husband will love me.
It means, see, I have a son, or you have a son. Keep going.
She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this is because the Lord heard that I was unloved and had given me this one also. So she named him Simeon. Again, she conceived and bore a son and declared, this time my husband will become attached to me, for I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore he was named Levi. She conceived again and bore a son and declared, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped the bearing.
Okay, so Judah, Yehuda, Hoda, thanks, Hodu, thanks, Toda, Yehudim. We all get it, thanks, Jews, same name. All right, last two. Yes, Norman.
Consorting with both women.
7 years apart. No, a week apart, yes.
What did they think of that?
Well, that's what we're going to be studying today. What did they think about that? The emotions run high. Oh, the emotions are running high. Let's see what happens. It's a confusing, it's a emotionally complex story, which is one of the reasons why I brought it today, to highlight the complexities of this section. So she was unloved. It says right here, she was unloved. Nobody wants to be married to somebody and know that they are unloved. That's for sure. I don't for sure, but it seems like that would be the case. So, Nancy, chapter 30, verses 1 and 2.
When Rachel saw that she was not bearing children to Jacob, Rachel came to envy her sister. She said to Jacob, "Let me have children, otherwise I am a dead woman." Jacob grew angry with Rachel and said, "Am I in place of God, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb?"
Okay. So, just a note on Nancy's translation. Nancy's translation, you're reading from the Women's Commentary, correct? So Nancy's translation, unlike I think either Plaut will say, "Give me children or I shall die." And Nancy, we have in the Modern Women's Commentary, verse 31, chapter 30, verse 1 again.
"Let me have children, otherwise I am a dead woman."
Yeah. So, im ein, I'm reading in the Hebrew, im ein meta anochi. If not, you could read it, I am as if I am dead, or I shall die. It really reads more like im ein meta anochi. It is as if I am already, it is as if I am a dead woman. So that's probably a slightly better translation. Okay, problem. Number of problems here. Of course, we have the problem of Jacob and Laban and the trickery. We seem to have another problem. Leah seems to be also conspiring with her father. So we have a few problems here in relationships, social status, humility, shame. Then we have who is blessed. Is Rachel blessed? Is Leah blessed? Rachel has the love, but she has no children. Leah is unloved, and she is being compensated, really, right? God has opened up her, God sees she is unloved and has opened up her womb. She's being compensated for the lack of love with children. Common story, right? Couples are having trouble. They have another child to see if that's going to bring them together. God worked the same way. All right. We're going to go on to our sheet here. Can everybody hear? Okay. So we're going to discuss Rachel and Leah. It says here in one of these last verses that they envied each other, but let's see really what's going on. And here's my hint, and if we can really come to a conclusion about their relationship. Or maybe it's just complex, like we may have experienced over Thanksgiving weekend, complexities. Let's see. Okay, so 29:17, Ve'enei Leah rakot. Leah had weak eyes, soft eyes. Rashi, who's reading? Who wants to read? What is the description of Leah? This is all we know of her physically. This is all we know of either of them physically. Now we know that from the beginning, in the beginning of this parasha, which we're not reading, that immediately Jacob fell in love with Rachel and she was all excited. And we also remember from Isaac and Rebekah that Laban was in charge of that match too, right, of Isaac and Rebekah. And Eliezer said, "Hey, let me take this woman." And Laban says, "Well, if she's ready to go." Rebekah says, "Yes, I'm ready to go." And then Laban says, "Well, let's wait for another year." And she says, No, I'm leaving. So we already see there's stuff going on with Jacob's parents. Who wants to read? Whose turn is it to read the Rashi? Paul, on page 1, first Rashi.
And Leah's eyes were soft, and as she thought her fate would be with Esau, and so she would cry, since everyone would say Rivka has 2 sons and Laban has 2 daughters. The older daughter was destined to marry the older son, and the younger daughter was destined to marry the younger son.
Okay, so she has weak eyes, not that she's unattractive, as some of the commentaries will say. She has weak eyes because she spent her mature life, her adolescence, crying because she figured she's going to be matched up with Esau, and who wants to be matched up with Esau? He's a no-good Nick. We don't want Esau. So she's been crying, and we see Rashi's also understanding the hint of the older to the older and the younger to the younger. Of course, there's a question here. Jacob stole the birthright. Is he really first? If he's first, does he get... Oh, he gets Leah. So let's see. So that's one understanding. She thought she was going to go to Esau, and that makes everybody sad. All right. That's setting the stage of the placement of the women, what they held out to be their future, which is, you know, when you look to your future and you see that it's there already, and one is good and one is bad, you already have a way of relating to each other and acting and this negative anticipation. That, according to Rashi, is what Leah is going through. She thinks she's destined for Esau, and now her father's going to do a switch, and she's not going to end up with Esau. How could that make her feel? Probably good. Okay, 29, 25. So we have the wedding we just read in the morning. Woo, it's Leah. 20, who's reading? I'll read the Hebrew. Vayehi v'boker, v'hine hi Leah. Vayomer el Lavan, ma zot asita li, halo v'rachel avadati imach, v'lama rimitani. When morning came, there was Leah. So he, Jacob, said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? I was in your service for Rachel. Why did you deceive me? What jumps out at this text as being, a little chutzpahdik, a little nervy of Jacob?
He deceived his father.
He did, right? He did the same thing. He's done the same thing to his father. He tricked him. And as we read more through we're going to really see it's almost the exact story of pretending with voice and everything else. So that's the first thing. Suddenly, he's injured. And yet, he does not seem to make any connection to this is how some family, this is how it's been going in this family. Right? What seems to be promised, as I love to say, ain't necessarily so. So he says, why did you do this to me? All right, let's see what Rashi says in the morning. Who's would like to, Judy, yep.
To me, it always seemed a little strange that he wakes up in the morning after
Are you staying for Minyan? Because that's going to be our Torah.
It seems a little strange that he would wake up in the morning not having, and all of a sudden, after making love to her at night, he realizes, oh, it's the wrong person.
Nachon, correct. I'm going to address that at the 10:30 hour. And what? Adults only. Adults only. Oh, well, yeah, and that's such Jacob's nature. Yuck. I told you we have a different viewpoint. The mature woman's rabbi's viewpoint of Jacob at this point. Yuck. Okay. Arthur's reading the Rashi.
And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. But at night it was not Leah, i.e., he failed to recognize that it was Leah, because Jacob had given Rachel certain secret signs by which they could at all times recognized one another. And when Rachel saw that they were about to bring Leah to him for the marriage ceremony, she thought, "My sister may now be put to shame." And she therefore readily transmitted these signs to her.
Okay, thank you. Leah has grown up understanding that she's going to end up with Esau. And there's a switch, and she may have a better chance now. She's with Jacob. Oh, nice, pretty timing. And there's nothing here that says, she said to her father, "No, Dad, Rachel and Jacob are really in love. They should be the one married." We don't hear that anywhere. We do hear in this midrash, in this idea of Rashi, taken from the midrash from Megillah 13b, that that Rachel now is reaching out to her sister to protect her. So we're not sure about Leah's concern for Rachel, but we do see here that Rachel's concerned for Leah. Why do the rabbis say this? Why is this written in? Why do we want Rachel to be the one with concern? This is the subtext now of this text. Why is it important for the rabbis to write about Rachel? Nancy, I get the mic.
I think it's important because it leads to the rest of their lives. Rachel and Jacob were bound together immediately through their hearts and their minds. But life doesn't always give us what we think we want or need. And you need to be able to deal with that. And at the heart of Rachel is kindness. And she doesn't dislike her sister, but it would be a horrible thing for her sister to be found out the night of her wedding and to have her whole life destroyed. And so in kindness, and because she does care for her sister, she allows it to go through. And in hopes that maybe something, because we do have at this time multiple wives, in hopes, I think, in her own heart that eventually she will be with Jacob.
So we have this, thank you, Nancy. We have the subtext that Rachel has to end up really being the good one. Rachel has to end up being the good one because she is the one that Jacob really loves. You know how the Torah has to be its own proof text. If Jacob loves Rachel, she has to be good. If she loves it, right, so she has to be good. This is an example of her being good. She has to be good. Not that Leah's bad, but we see that Leah's trying to protect herself, I guess, or doesn't want to end up with the no goodnik. Question, we guess.
Why did they have secret signs? For what purpose?
Oh.
Did Jacob think
Yes.
he was going to be deceived?
So in the great respect they had for Jacob, they thought they could fool him by having Leah pretend she's Rachel. Now, I was just reading another commentator that said, well, this worked because it's the obvious question, like how could this have worked? One of the commentators wrote, this worked because Jacob was so chaste that even though he spent 7 years pining after Rachel, he had never really spoken to her in close quarters. So maybe this is why they thought it could work, because he hadn't been, he was sort of more removed from her and very well-mannered. So yeah, the idea was to fool him with Leah's voice, just like Jacob fooled his father. But did he? Right? Remember Isaac? Gee, it smells like Esau, it feels like Esau, but the voice is the voice of Jacob. Right? So now Leah is using her voice to fool Jacob. We don't have any idea, by the way, that he thought otherwise, 10:30 sermon, that he thought otherwise, that it wasn't her. The real answer is, of course, is what I'll say at 10:30, is that he didn't care because he was just so wrapped up in Jacobness. So, yes,
So
Edith.
Jacob loved Rachel, but God loved Leah. God gave Leah all those children.
God either loved Leah or God compensated Leah. Well, God loves all God's children. But yes, God favored, and it's amazing that, if we think that this is the way it's supposed to go, in the story of the patriarchs and matriarchs, Abraham and Isaac, Isaac and Rebekah, right, Jacob and Rachel and Leah, right, that this is how it's supposed to go, that God knew what was going to happen and compensated Leah for this being unloved. Which, as we know, when we get to the story of throwing Rachel's son Joseph in the well, one of the reasons is because the sons lived with a mother who was so unloved and bitter, which I think we also see somewhat in here. All right, so we're trying to deal with these relationships with these two gals and what they had to do to make it, at least make it through the parasha, or part of the parasha. So they have the signs. He wakes up, oh no, it's Leah, what did you do to me? What'd you do to me? Not what'd you do to Leah, what'd you do to me? All right, chapter 29, verse 31. Vayar Adonai king, and this is Torah's word, sinu a Leah. She was hated. Vayaftach et Rachma, Rachel, Akara, seeing Leah was unloved, Adonai opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. It's a big Ramban here. Who would like to read it carefully and slowly? Otherwise, it's hard to understand. Whose turn is it? Oh, thanks. But you got to use the microphone, otherwise our folks online can't hear.
And the Eternal saw that Leah was hated.
Hang on. No, microphone closer to your mouth. There.
And the Eternal saw that Leah was hated. Now Leah had deceived her sister and also Jacob. For even if we were to say that she showed respect for her father, who took her and brought her in to him, and she was not rebellious against him, she should have by word or sign indicated that she was Leah. All the more is this so, since she feigned herself all night to be another, which was the reason why Jacob did not recognize her until he saw her in the morning. It was for this reason that Jacob hated her. But God, knowing that she did so in order to be married to a righteous one, had compassion upon her. And so the rabbis said in Bereshis Rabbah, when Jacob saw the deeds by which Leah had deceived her sister, he decided to divorce her. But when the Holy One, blessed be he, remembered her by giving her children, Jacob said, shall I divorce the mother of these children? This is the meaning of the expression, and the Eternal saw. He had compassion upon her so that Jacob should not leave her. But there are some scholars who say that in the case of the two wives, one of whom is loved exceedingly, the second one, who is less beloved, is called hated, relative to the first. Just as Scripture said, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, but not that he hated her. Leah, however, was ashamed of the matter, and so God saw her affliction.
Yes, thank you. Seeing that Leah was unloved, okay. He opened her womb. Judith, you want to say something? It's past the mic. That's a complicated Ramban.
So this may be a little divergent, but when did the Jews become monogamous?
That's a great question. The Ashkenazi Jews became monogamous first, I think early, or even year 1000. I don't have the exact year, but around that time. The Sephardic Jews did not become monogamous. And that's too broad. The Jews that lived in North Africa and the Near East, but mostly North Africa, had more than one wife until or through their immigration to Israel in the early 1950s. Yes. When they moved to Israel in the early 50s and they had more than one wife, it was permitted. You didn't have to divorce them, but they were not allowed the next generation, they weren't allowed to take second wives legally. So this were, very, very late. I had a student when I was at the University of Miami so many years ago who's now this prolific writer and social justice speaker. I think she had like 21 first cousins or something. I'm like, how do you have so many? Her grandfather had 2 wives from Tunisia. Yes, Faye?
Why did they decide that monogamy was preferable?
Oh, that's a good question. Why? I don't know the answer. Why did they, the question was, why was it decided that monogamy was preferable? My guess is that Israel was creating a more Western country, and I guess before that, with the Ashkenazim, it was also what was done. I think people had, well, we'll call it, at least if you weren't Catholic, serial monogamy, right? Serial monogamy is when you would have one wife divorced, so then you could have a second one, but not 2 at the same time. That's my guess, but I don't really know what the thinking was. But it's a good thing to look up. Sherry, you want to say something? Take the mic from Ian.
Just a quick question. So Jacob, was he the first person married to 2 women? The other women, he was, when you talk about...
Abraham.
He was not married to Hagar.
He wasn't married to Hagar,
The same
correct.
thing with Zilpah and Bilhah.
Zilpah and Bilhah, yes. So it's like 2 wives. I say it. We were doing something with kids the other day, and I was explaining it was because they asked such great questions. I'm like, it's 2 wives plus 2. That's sort of like what it was. So Jacob was the first one married, yes, to 2 women.
Well, those are
Except Esau, right? Esau had other wives, right? Esau took 1 wife and he took some more Canaanite wives, and yes, Esau had 2 wives, more than 1, more than 2, I think.
But they're not mentioned.
They are mentioned.
Well, no, they're mentioned before him, but I mean, they're just like mentioned.
Yeah, they're mentioned they're mentioned in such a nonchalant way, except that Isaac and Rebekah hated his wives, except for that part, that it was understood that, yeah, you have more than 1 wife. Esau had more than 1 wife. So that wasn't the problem here.
After Jacob, they don't discuss the wife, more than 1 wife of any of his children.
After Jacob, when we go down the line of the ancestors, we don't have another one that is in the forefront that's shown to have more than, yes, David and Solomon. So yeah, so it was normal, and for many, and still we see in Arab society, right? Anybody who has a couple of dinars or shekels will have more than 1 wife.
I have a feeling that the reason that the Ashkenazis went to monogamy around the time they did was after the Iberian Peninsula fell from the Moors. You want to do you want to follow the custom of the land, and the custom of the land was monogamy.
So I think after that late certainly was the custom of land, and I think also probably before that, yeah. Sherry, and then I want to unpack all that Ramban. It's a lot of to understand.
This has to do with Ramban.
Okay.
Okay, so this is really contradictory to what you said beforehand about Rachel and Leah showing him the signs, or I remember one time that she was underneath the bed or whatever, because now it just says that Leah deceived her, and it is what he's saying, but actually it was like they both, Rachel didn't want her to be shamed. So it's like a contradiction, and this is very upsetting.
I know, it's so upsetting.
It's upsetting.
It is. What I'm talking about, and I have a brief Devar Torah later, but I read something which some of you may read by David Wolpe, a very little, tiny, cute Devar Torah, and it was so upsetting that I have to talk about later, but it's the same vein. All right, so let's look at this. This one, the Ramban, right? Medieval Jewish scholar, Catalan, Sephardic rabbi, philosopher, physician, Kabbalist, and biblical commentator. He's writing this somewhere between somewhere in the early 13th century, right? So early 13th century, and he's saying, oh, you know what? The other Midrashim, I don't know if they're right. He's saying Leah deceived her sister and also Jacob. But why? Goes back to Leah having weak eyes. She wanted to marry a righteous man. She didn't want to risk not marrying Jacob. Jacob was considered the righteous one, not Esau. So she did this. And he also mentions, look, she was so deceptive that she never even said anything to her father. She should have, by word or sign, indicated that she was Leah. Ramban is saying she's guilty. Maybe deceiving her sister and her husband wasn't worth marrying a righteous man. All the more so, since she feigned herself all night to be another, which is why Jacob didn't recognize her, and why in the morning he really didn't like her. That she deceived him, and that's the reason. So now Jacob, he's in a quandary. I have all these kids I have from her. I have these 4 sons. What am I going to do? Okay, I should really divorce her because I'm really mad at her. 4 children later, 3 children later. I'm really mad at her. I'm also married to Rachel now, but, you know, I'm not going to leave her because I'm not going to, remember the men didn't leave, they let the wives go. Because I have these children, and God then also stepped in. And the Eternal saw. He had compassion upon her, so Jacob did not leave her. So the Eternal saw her twice. Once, she wasn't loved in the Torah text, and God opened up her womb. And 2, God saw her, and Jacob stayed with her, or didn't divorce her. So, last, we'll go back, and he loved the last line of the Ramban, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, but not that he hated her. He's saying he didn't really hate her now. Leah, however, was ashamed of the matter, and so God saw her affliction. What was Leah ashamed of? Was she ashamed that she wasn't loved? Was she ashamed of the fact that she deceived her sister and her husband and was in cahoots with her father?
All of the above.
All of the above. Maybe all of the above she was ashamed of. So, okay, now we have these 2 sisters. They're basically living in the same household. One has children, one doesn't. We're going to see this play out more and more. There's shame. There's envy, there's love, there's resentment, there's all these things in this relationship happening between these 2 women, fueled, of course, by whom, Sherry? Who fueled this complex relationship between the 2 sisters? 2 exact answers. Jacob, Laban, both of them. Both of them. I did not say that. Sherry said it's always the men in the Torah that cause the trouble, and the women then sort of have to repair it. I don't know, can these gals repair this? It is tough. It is tough. Remember, they're sisters. I'm online, so I can't say the conversations between 2 of my children this weekend, but I was like, you got to be kidding me. Ian.
Question that came up before, how is it that they decided to stop, go to
Monogamy, yeah. You guys are fascinated by that.
It turned out that men looked at Elders and said, I can't take more than one of these. This is ridiculous. I get nothing out of it except Surus.
Too much Surus.
It's a fiction. You can only afford one Jew.
Can only afford that. It certainly is Surus if you have multiple relationships. Nobody here watches Sister Wives? Do you know what Sister Wives is even? It's a TV show with one lunatic has 4 wives and children, with like 1 billion children. And when you see the women, they seem to have some sense of themselves, or as the years pass, they seem to have grown more sense of themselves. Anyway, they're leaving him like one by one. But it's this all around. So, yes, Bobby.
There was a good book.
Here.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're
There was
welcome.
a good book about the end of the first millennium, and it's a story about two Jews, traders, one an Ashkenazi and another Sephardic. The Sephardic had many wives, several wives, and the Ashkenazi had one wife because he, as somebody said, conformed to the Jews. The Ashkenazi Jews conformed to the customs of the community, and it was the tension between the two men and their families. And it was a very interesting study in how Judaism evolved in Middle Europe during the first millennium.
Thank you.
It's a good book.
Do you know the name of the book?
I forgot the name.
Look up Story Between Two Jews Having Trouble with Each Other and see if you can find the book. Maybe you can find it. It's called the Bible. Very good one, Jeff. Okay.
If I go into the library and ask the librarian, you know.
Okay. Genesis 30. Whose turn is it to read? We're here at where it says 30. Thank you, Joe. Here you go.
When Rachel saw that she had borne Jacob no children, she became envious of her sister, and Rachel said to Jacob, "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob was incensed at Rachel and said, "Can I take the place of God who has denied you fruit of the womb?"
Who has denied Rachel children? Thank you. Who denied Rachel? God. When does God deny somebody something? When they've done something wrong. Read the Rashi. Whose turn is it to read the Rashi? Here we go. At the bottom of page 2.
She was envious of her because of her good deeds, thinking, unless she were more righteous than I am, she would not have been privileged to bear children.
Read the next one.
Did then your daughter act
Your father.
Did then your father act so towards your mother? Did he not pray on her behalf?
Okay, thank you. Wow. Why is Rachel now envious of her sister? She must be better than her. This is so confusing because in one hand we read Leah did bad things, Jacob wanted to leave her, and God had compassion on her. Now we're reading Rachel envied her because Rachel also has, what's the word, psychological word, integrated, assimilated this idea that she must have done something wrong, just like her husband said to her, you must be at fault because God has denied you. So Rachel's like, oh, I envy my sister because she had to have done something right that she has these children. And get that? Get that point? Wait, who said she did something wrong? What did Rachel do wrong?
She gave the signs to Leah that he would think, Jacob would think it was her. He was complicit.
She was, maybe Rachel was complicit too, if we go by that story, right? Not the story where Leah pretended to be Rachel, or we can go by the other story that says Rachel gave her the signs to be complicit. I know, isn't this fun?
Okay, so Rachel is now, okay, so Jacob blaming Rachel because Jacob is blaming Rachel because God says he's only denying her because she did something wrong.
Well, no, we don't say that.
No, but
it's understood, subtext again.
Subtext. However, Sarah did not have a baby until she was 90-something years old, and she was barren. So what was her fault that she did then?
We don't say that she had a fault.
But then
we don't say this is the relationship between Jacob and Rachel. She's blaming him. He's don't blame me, blame God. We don't know. It doesn't say she did anything wrong. He is torturing her by saying, yes, he is abusing her by saying it's God did this to you,
But then
not me.
Then it gives her the complex.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. He's abusive to her at this point. She wasn't so nice to him, but then she continues, did then your father act so towards your mother? What happened with Isaac and Rebekah? Was Isaac mean to Rebekah? Didn't Isaac pray for Rebekah? Or remember, Rebekah cried, I have these two rotten twins in my womb and they're killing me. Why do I exist? Is what she said. And she's saying to him, but you know, your mother conceived. Didn't your father speak out for your mother? Or shouldn't you speak out on my behalf? Shouldn't you, as the husband, speak out on my behalf? Okay, wait, here's his answer. Turn to page 3. Who's reading? Whose turn? Larry, your turn to read. Let me hand you the microphone. You're passing. Okay, then Sherry will go down this row. Did I break the order? Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Sherry. Top of page 3.
Who hateth withheld from thee? You say that I should do as my father did, but I am not circumstanced as my father was. My father had no children at all. I, however, have children. From you he has withheld children, and not from me.
Yikes!
How could his father have no children at all?
Okay, so Isaac prayed for Rebekah, but they had no children. When Isaac prayed for Rebekah, they had no children. Jacob's like, I have kids. My father prayed because he didn't have kids. This is, By the way, the people writing this, I don't see the name Gloria Steinem next to them. I see Rashi. Even those guys we're getting at, these are complex folks, just like we are all complex folks.
You guys had to go home.
Okay, you had to go home. Yeah, you had to go home that night. Who's reading? Oh, we went, Nancy, you already went? Okay, Jeffrey. We're at page 3, Bereshit Rabbah. Oh, sorry, I'm too close. It's me.
71:6.
Yes.
When Rachel saw that she had borne no children to Yaakov, Rachel envisioned her sister.
Envied.
Her sister. Rabbi Yitzhak said, it is written, let not your heart envy sinners, but be in the fear of the Lord all day. Yet you say, and Rachel envied her sister, but it teaches that she envied her good deeds. She said, had she not been righteous, she would not have given birth.
Okay, so you don't envy a sinner, you only envy somebody who's righteous. Here's another, if I had the blackboard, I would use this. Another point for Leah's righteousness. That's another section for Leah's righteousness. Rachel's envied her because Leah has done good deeds. They're not enumerated here. Ian, you have a question. Let's pass the mic to.
There's something profoundly wrong when you blame the mother-to-be or the mother-want-to-be that you probably are not righteous, therefore you are not fertile.
Spoken like a physician.
Well, because when people come in for infertility, there are all these fears and scared and whatnot. And if in fact they're religious on top of all of that,
They are
we
right.
had a lot of very religious people come to our office for that. There are many feelings about it. At that time, I didn't have this in the background, but I can well see how there is this grief as what did I do to deserve this? And that, frankly, I think is wrong.
So, thank you, Ian. So is this written to sort of, I can't say, well, maybe it's written as one explanation of infertility or to explain it because Torah folks understood things only in the Torah world. Good things happen when you do good. Bad things happen when you don't do good or you do bad. That is one way to explain it. It is a basic way to explain it, but people undergoing all sorts of infertility illness are constantly digging at, what have I done? What have I done? Why am I being punished? Right? And this is, and maybe it started here. I mean, these guys are, you know, they're not all writing at the same time, and they're saying contrasting things and similar things. So just giving us a bunch of ideas for the complexity of the relationship between Rachel and Leah, Rachel, Leah, and Jacob. How complex is life? Opening up all of those complexities for us, or reminding us that even then. Let's look. Now, this is a really moving one. Eicha Rabbah. It's the commentary on the Book of Lamentations. Who's reading?
All right. At that moment, Rachel, our mother, jumped up before Hashem and said, Master of the universe, you know that Yaakov, your servant, loved me a great love and worked for me for my father for 7 years. And when the 7 years were up and the time came for me to be married to my husband, my father devised a plan to have my sister switch places with me for my husband. And this was very difficult for me, as I heard about the plan, and I swallowed my suffering and had mercy on my sister, so that she should not be shamed in public. And that evening, my sister took my place for my husband instead of me, and I gave her all the signs that I gave my husband, so that he would think that she was Rachel. And not only that, but I laid under the bed where he lay with my sister. And when he spoke with her, she was silent, and I answered each time, so that he would not recognize her voice, and I acted with loving kindness towards her, and I was not jealous of her, and I did not put her to shame.
Thank you, Ed. 6th century. The compassion written by men in the 6th century for these two women is really surprising. Look at that. I mean, I find this amazing. And so in this section, Rachel has to re-explain everything that happened to God. This is her testimony that she should now have children. This is her testimony. God, look at all I've done, and it was for good, not for bad. Yes, it was to deceive Jacob, but for the benefit of my sister. You know, and so in this term, Jacob's the cuckold, and the two wives are in charge. Sort of. We can read it that way, but in the big picture, really not. But yeah. Right? And we're going to see also later on, sell me your son's mandrakes, and my husband will come into you tonight. So the women sort of are raised up. Yes, Faye. Use the microphone. Judy, pass the microphone to Faye.
This to me seems very fantastical. That the guy, you know, that this rabbi decided that she had hidden under the bed and pretended and fooled him so that he would think that it was her in bed with him. I mean, it's just
It was underhanded.
pretty ridiculous.
It goes back to, in the morning there was Leah. He's answering the text from the Torah that says, in the morning there was Leah. How could he be surprised? Because we answer, how could he be surprised that it was Leah? These are the written answers to that question. How could he not know it wasn't Leah?
Who wrote this?
Who wrote a collection of Midrashim on Eicha, 6th century? Different rabbis, different guys.
It's extra biblical.
Yeah. Oh, yes. This is not biblical. This is later. Sherry, take the microphone. What?
Jeannie's librettist.
It was Thank you.
If you look at it a different way, Rachel and Leah are just honoring their father and his wishes.
Maybe, but these guys, no, they're not saying that.
No. I'm saying the reason why they did what they did
Was to honor their father. Possible. The other midrash says, you know, she didn't rebel. They are going to rebel, right? They run away with their husband, even though the father's chasing them. So they will rebel. But you could, but it doesn't say that. None of the rabbis are really saying that because of what happens later. So, Bob, you want to say something?
Yeah, one last.
Oh, wait, hang on.
Wasn't this the progenitor of the bedecking ceremony in Jewish weddings?
Yes, that's one of the answers to why we check the husband comes and veils his bride to make sure. Oh, yeah, that's one of the stories. Okay, thank you. All right, we're almost done. Ve'achar, and after, last, she bore him a daughter and named her Dinah. Dinah means, Paul, Dinah? What does Dinah mean? Where's it from? What word is Dinah from? Law and judgment. Right? Here's the judgment. The law has been cast. Leah finally had a daughter. Leah bore, whose turn is it to read? We're down at the bottom of page 3.
Leah bore once more, and this last time it was a daughter, a man-child turned into a woman by her prayer.
Okay, when the baby was conceived, it was a man-child. She prayed and turned into a woman-child. Keep reading.
When she conceived for the 7th time, she spoke as follows. God promised Jacob 12 sons. I bore him 6, and each of the 2 handmaids has borne him 2. If now I were to bring forth another son, my sister Rachel would not be equal even unto the handmaids. Therefore she prayed to God to change the male embryo in her womb into a female, and God hearkened unto her prayer.
Yes, each 2 handmaid had 2 sons. So if we did the math, 2, her 6, that's 10. He promised 12 sons. Rachel had to have 2 to be at least equal to her handmaids. This baby was conceived as a boy, Dinah, but prayed and changed into a girl. Leah now is showing her compassion to her sister. And doing all this math, too. Praying to... So I think that is an incredible midrash. She's making sure that her sister, now Leah is not considering is Rachel righteous or not. Did God close her womb? Is God make her infertile? Is God going to grant it to her? She's just saying, I want to make sure that at least there's that opportunity. So, one last thing. Turn over to page 4. In the Women's Commentary, which Nancy reads from, there are always voices, poetry, songs, things, ideas about the portion written by women. This one written by Dr. Sherry Bloomberg, happened to be one of my professors of education. My eyes are weak, but my body is strong. I'm not afraid to work. I have worked and will work, and someday will bear children. My eyes are weak, but my resolve is strong. I shall have my due, first to be married, first to bear children, yet I'll not be as loved as you. My eyes are weak, but my love is strong, for I have loved you. You shall become a legend. I will always be second, even in memory and in prayer. And when we pray, we say, Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Leah. Rachel and Leah. Leah will always be second, according to our texts, even though she seems like she has won. But down the ages, has she really won? So, those are some texts I shared for the complexities. Are the women jealous of each other, envious of each other? Yes. Do they love each other? Yeah, there we go. That's what one of the things that the Torah is showing us. It doesn't. We get hints at who's righteous and who isn't righteous. Do we know at the end of the story who is righteous and who isn't righteous? Is it clear? Is it clear that one is righteous and one isn't?
Sure.
It is? Who? Who do you think's righteous?
Rachel, because God wanted Rachel.
Okay, so the legend, because everything follows through Rachel, we think that she is more righteous, but we don't really get that at the end of all of our study that Leah wasn't righteous. It's just that maybe Rachel was the one chosen. It is clearer with Jacob and Esau who should be the one. It is clearer with Isaac and Ishmael. It's not as clear with Leah and Rachel. And that's the complexity of the woman. So, Tada Rabah, everybody, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Excellent.
For today, it was great.
Oh, my pleasure.
The one thing that always bothers me is that the matriarchs have to be
No.
Sarah is the most beautiful.
Right, beautiful.
Sarah is the most beautiful in the nation. Rebecca.
It's like Darwin, before Darwin. That's the survival of the fittest is like the most beautiful. Correct. Who they are. Right.
Kind or generous or fertile or whatever.
Right. Now when we speak to children, we're always very careful of complimenting on who they are, what they've done, not like little boys. Oh, you're so brave, little girls. You're so cute. Right.